Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mathew Alexanderson, and until recently I was part of the Soil CRC's PhD cohort. My thesis was entitled Social Drivers of Transitions to Regenerative Agriculture, and I was supervised by Dr Hannah Luke and Associate Professor David Lloyd of Southern Cross University. So I've been given 4 minutes to sum up 4 years of research, so bear with me. So, agriculture has issues. It's simply why we are all here. Some suggest the answer lies partly or entirely in regenerative agriculture. My thesis looked at what makes people transition and go down a regenerative path, but today's focus is on knowledge sharing pathways and practice change to sort of help research and development for those in the room. Now, as Catherine mentioned, my thesis was linked to the Soil CRC's Social Benchmarking Survey. Now, this is being talked about at previous conferences, but for those that are just joining us for the first time, we send out about a 16-page booklet asking a variety of questions on farming to about 2,000 farmers across a certain region. Now, we didn't manage to capture too many regenerative farmers in that process, so we developed an additional survey which was put out online, which gave us more robust data for our regenerative farmers. So my thesis had 5 stakeholder groups, and this was best practice farmers and those that were non-best practice. I then had a chapter on self-identified regenerative farmers and a comparison of consultants, those that self-identified as regenerative and those that did not. So some of the overview of the findings were that regenerative farmers tend to feel isolated within their communities and therefore look to different and alternate methods of where they get their information from. Farmers can be encouraged to change their practices through gradually changing practices as opposed to what's often in the literature as needing a traumatic event to go down a regenerative path. Many farmers that are implementing best practices that would relate to regenerative agriculture don't necessarily identify as it. And a belief in anthropogenic climate change is one of the major drivers of implementation of best practices. So there's a bit of information on this next slide, and across the top we've got the 5 different stakeholder groups, and this is where farmers are getting their knowledge from. So what we traditionally see in the literature is that other farmers are the main source of information, and as you can see on the top left, 74 to 76% of farmers are using that. For our regenerative farmers, this drops down to just under 40%. So while we're getting out the information of the amazing research that goes on in this room, it's worth considering what channels we use to get this out to farmers. You can see on the right, websites are a really common way, but you're more likely to get something out on YouTube to a regenerative farmer than have another farmer chat to them over the fence. And for those of us in the academic sphere, not many farmers read research papers, which is probably not surprising. And just to finish up on, this slide's looking at practice changes into the future for regenerative farmers, which is of interest to those for research and development. Farmers are going to want to know about carbon farming. So in the black we've got the sort of previous past 5 years, and that's looking to where they project their practices and interests are going into the future. So for those that are working in increasing biological pest control or composting or the supplement of biological soil supplements, this is going to be of interest to regenerative farmers into the future. And that is me summing up 4 years of research in 4 minutes. Thank you.